Good day, everybody, and welcome to episode 42 of my YouTube video series. And today we're going to talk about some news in the latest government land sales for Singapore. Some interesting news. I think two topics to cover here in general. One is recently we had some government land sales that concluded on the end of June. The results were quite interesting, to say the least. So for all of you who like to watch Singapore property news, I think it was quite interesting bit to talk about. We'll talk about that later. And the second thing we'll talk about today is also the H2 2023 government land sales, right? And actually this year, the government is throwing up quite a fair bit of land for developers to buy. So what is their intention of doing so? Where are these plots of land? So we'll talk about it today in today's video. I hope you guys enjoy. And as per usual, let's start this video with an introduction of myself.
Director of Alpha Marketing.
Still in Malaysia. So my name is Ryan. What's that, Ryan?
6,000 incoming supply in Johor. This is
I'm writing. Thank you for attending today's presentation on Iskandar, Malaysia. Yeah, my name is Ryan Khoo. I am a Malaysian. I'm a Singapore PR. I've been based in Singapore since 2009. So I've been in Singapore for more than 10 years. I'm half Singaporean now. My wife is Singaporean. I'm a property investor first. I made a ton of money. Okay, I won't say a ton of money. I made some good money. My first pot of gold investing in Malaysian real estate back in 2007, and I came to Singapore. I also started buying Singapore property as well. So today I own property in Singapore and in Malaysia. Generally, I have a good property portfolio. I don't want to brag. Of course, there are people who have much bigger property portfolios than me, but I'm comfortable enough with what I have. Today, I'm also a property agent in Singapore as well as in Malaysia. So I do cover both markets, especially Iskandar, Malaysia, quite a fair bit, Singapore as well. My policy towards this is if you're living in Singapore today, you should always try to fulfill your Singapore property portfolio first, because Singapore has proven to be a great place to own real estate. But of course, once you have done that and you find that you have limited options thereafter, I suggest people to look at Malaysia, especially Iskandar, because JB is a extension of the Singapore economy. And once MRT connects to JB in a few years' time, I know that is a big plus point for JB. But yeah, today's topic is not about that. We're going to talk about Singapore property market today. Yeah, and you'll see me as per this slide. I was regularly featured in many media articles in Singapore talking about property investment, by Property Guru, by HProp. I've written articles for them as well, ST Property, and I've been on stage with some of the biggest property names in Singapore as well. So yeah, so I believe that is my credentials for those of you who first time know me. So let's talk about today's topic, which is the government land sales, right? And what are the trends that we're looking today? And from these trends in government land sales, we can try to predict a little bit the future, right? And the trends for the Singapore property market, right? Now, the latest government land sales results was on the 27th of June. There was some pretty interesting news. I think the most interesting one, of course, was the Marina Gardens land sale. Now, this plot, right? Actually, when it was first announced, people were quite excited because it's the first condo sale in Marina Bay in a long time. I think in maybe 10 years, maybe longer than 10 years, right? And this plot, interestingly, is just opposite Gardens by the Bay. You can actually walk to Gardens by the Bay quite easily, right? And you can see, yeah, you can as per the picture here, right? And there is also the advantage of the Marina South station, which is currently under construction. But this station actually will be ready in like, a year or two, right? So actually you will have sort of like almost direct connection to this Marina South MRT, right? And people were quite excited about this plot, yeah, because of, there's no Marina Bay plot, right, originally, right? I think the last one was Marina 1, right, which is over here, which is a joint venture between the Singapore and Malaysian governments, and this is quite an old project, okay? So the interesting thing about this site is if you look at the people who bidded for the site, right, you had 4 developers go in and the winner, which is Kingsford Development. Now, Kingsford is a Chinese developer. They're from China, right? Of course, the owner today he's converted to Singaporean, right? But this is actually a China-based developer, and they actually won at 1,004 per square foot, right? And that was like 40% higher than the number two. Number 2 was Goko Land, right? And you can see Goko Land and Far East, their prices were not very far away at 900 plus per square foot, right? So, so at number 1, he paid 40% more. So I mean, you want to call it stupid, you want to call it smart, or he overpaid, right? I mean, I think this site a bit difficult to price in a sense, right? But they paid 40% more, so I think very likely they'll be the winner at over $1 billion for this site. So 1,004 per square foot for a Marina Bay plot of land, right? And interestingly, the fourth guy, Japura, you may wonder who is Japura. Japura actually is the same developer as Perfect 10, Hong Kong developer. So Japura somehow throw in a bit of only $200 per square foot. So again, this one also, people wondering, I know, are they stupid or what? or are they trying to be smart, right? Maybe they try to sneak in a very low bid, expecting other people not to buy, right? And maybe they can get the plot for cheap. But I mean, at $200, I don't know. It's too low, right? I mean, I don't know, but maybe I don't know whether they're joking or not, right? But yeah, so very interesting results from this Marina Bay land, right? So one guy overpaid more than 40% than the next guy, right? And you have one guy that paid very, very low, right? Offer tender very, very low, and you don't know why they're thinking like that. Now, I think one reason why this Marina Bay plot of land, we consider it a bit weird or maybe a bit difficult to price is because although it's Marina Bay, which is a prime location, but technically speaking, this area is underdeveloped, right? If you've been to Marina Bay, you know what I mean. All the plots around here are empty. There's no schools, there's no food nearby. I mean, the nearest district is actually Marina Bay, which is over here, which is quite a distance also to walking, right? The MRT doesn't connect today. Like I said, no schools, no food, no mall in the nearby vicinity. You're only really nearby Gardens by the Bay, right? So in that sense, it's not traditionally somewhere that Singaporeans want to buy. And if you buy this project with the aim to target foreigners, which is also difficult today because now foreigners have to pay a 60% ABSD. So foreigners may not be so keen to buy Singapore in that sense because pay 60% ABSD, right? So that's the other problem with Marina Bay site, right? And the other thing to think about is, although the last Marina Bay project was more than 10 years ago, which is Marina 1. But actually, Marina 1 also didn't do all that well. If you look at property prices in Marina 1, they didn't really make a lot of money, make a little bit. And actually, the developer also took some time to really sell everything. They have finally cleared most of Marina 1, but I think that was also after many, many years, right? So in that sense, Marina Bay as an area doesn't necessarily perform well as an investment, right? Or maybe people are a bit cautious when it comes to locations where we expect foreigners to buy because, you know, foreigners have to pay ABSD today, right? The other thing, of course, you can see this, right, by the developers, the local developers, Gokoland and Far East. They bid it quite conservatively though, at 900 plus per square foot, right? So at 900 plus per square foot, it's actually lower than some projects we see at the RCR. Like for example, today, this weekend or last weekend, we just launched Grand Dunman, right? So Grand Dunman, right, the land price is actually 1,003, you know. Even Tembusu Grand also 1,003. So you can expect East Coast Singapore priced higher than Marina Bay, right? By $400, you know. So actually, what we are saying now, either the developers now, they have become more cautious, right? More conservative in general, right? They're willing to pay less for a so-called more prime site, because Marina Bay in theory is more prime than East Coast, right? But why the developers offering to pay less, right? Is it a function of the site that they don't believe so much in the site compared to East Coast, or is it because overall economics have changed, developers are now more cautious for land in Singapore, right? So that's up to us to interpret, right? What you think about it. These are the possibilities. 900 plus per square foot only for Marina Bay by local developers. Of course, the Chinese guy, Kingsford, came in and really show that they're willing to, right, at 1,004. Now, the other thing is, typically land plots in this type area, you know, as developers, you tend to build something nice, right? Something funky, you know, what we call iconic development, right? Something like Deleden or, you know, Interlace or some very nice aesthetically looking condo, right? And by that, maybe the developers can charge a higher premium. But again, in Singapore, we also have many such condos where don't necessarily do well, you know, like the most famous one is Reflections by Keppel Bay, right? Reflections by Keppel Bay looks very nice, right? Like a spaceship, right? A very futuristic design. But again, Reflections by Keppel Bay didn't really do well, technically speaking, right? Even Marina 1 also quite aesthetically very nice, but not every unit in Marina 1. Marina 1 actually has a 50-50 kind of result. Not every project unit there make money. I think it's about 50-50 in terms of who made money, who did make money in Marina 1. So it tends to show that in core central region, right, property prices don't necessarily make money, right? Especially in recent years, right? An iconic development don't necessarily make money, right? In Marina Bay, but of course people may buy to stay, just to enjoy the views, because of course if you buy a project here, your views will be fantastic, right? And a lot of nice things to see, right? So let's see what happens, right, when Kingsford launches this site. Probably early next year, right? Early 2024. But there's interesting results here, right? This shows you different developer have different thinking, right? Here you can see 3 different thought process. Kingsford, more optimistic. The 2 local developers, Goko Land and Far East, more cautious. And finally, a Japura from Hong Kong. Don't know what's their thought process. Try to curi ayam, in Malay they call it, or try to sneak in a little bit. Obviously not successful, but yeah, 200 per square foot is really lowballing, lowballing the government here, right? But yeah, so that's interesting for the result on 27 June. Let me know what you think in the comments based on these results. For this land plot in Marina Gardens, right? The next one is the one in Tampines, right? Now, this project is also mixed development, right? It's not called integrated development because there's technically speaking no MRT built into it, although the MRT is nearby, just a short walk away, but MRT is not built into it. But this project will be mixed development, right? With a mall downstairs, I think, and if I'm not wrong, bus interchange as well. Nearby, and this covers Tampines North, right, which is an area traditionally where a lot of new BTO just completed recently. Is one of the more newer areas in Tampines, right? It's the one, if you're not sure where Tampines North is the one between current Tampines towards IKEA, right? Most of the land there is currently being built up, right? With new BTOs getting keys recently, and of course some private projects as well. The nearest one we have to compare, of course, is the Tenet EC, which is somewhere over here. If you follow my mouse, here. Yeah, somewhere over here, the Tenet EC that sells so very well as a condo. So this was a condo project, and again, land prices here were also a bit cautious. Now, if you look, 3 bids, right, and all at a per square foot of below 1,000, yeah, 884,776, 666, right? So again, developers very cautious here, right? Now, again, if I just want to highlight to you, Grand Dunman, right, which also has a retail component launching right now this weekend, this year, right, had a land price of 1,350, yeah, that is like $400-500 difference, right? So you are potentially looking at projects coming out in end of 2024 or early 2025, which are prices maybe the same as Grand Dunman or lower, potentially even lower than whatever was launched this year, simply because developers are bidding lower now, right? Gone are the days where we see over 1,000 per square foot, right? Over 1,000 is very common last couple of years, but now we are seeing developers definitely more cautious on land price, right? All at below 1,000 now. At least the local developers are, right? Singapore-based developers are not bidding as high for land as previously, and also not that many bids also, right? Only 3 bids here, right? And even the number 1 is a joint venture, right? That means a few developers share money to buy, right? That means they're not so confident to put so much money into one project, right? So they all gang up together to do it, right? So this one will be led by Capital Land, it seems, at 884 per square foot, right? So this is interesting, this project as well. And like I said, watch the land prices, because that will tell you the trend for future Singapore prices, right? And the third one is an EC. This one is in Tengah, right? Technically it's Tengah lah, but this is the border of Tengah, somewhere between Bukit Batok Road and the PIE Highway, right? Is surprisingly, this EC plot is not within where most of the BTOs are being built in Tengah right now. It's down a little bit, which is what I don't like in a sense. For some reason, they try and push the EC a bit further into a new area. Of the fringe of Tengah rather than the heart of Tengah. But of course, Tengah is a very popular place now. A lot of people are looking at it as a next Punggol, because Punggol has done very well, right? But of course, I think a lot of us, even in real life, myself, many property agents or people in Singapore have not really been to Tengah itself, because Tengah is under construction, right? You can't really go there today. You can't really see anything unless you're a construction worker or construction company, right? But this one, EC, had a lot more bids now. This one had 9 bids, right? If you see here, we don't have prices now because this EC has a new concept where they're going to have 1 bid for price, 1 bid for construction and proposal design method, right? So HDB is going to evaluate both before they make a decision who gets the project, right? So yeah, so 9 developers shows that developers are a lot more confident on EC, because generally speaking, I think last year, this year, ECs have sold pretty well, right? I think with the exception of the Yishun one, I think all other ECs in Singapore have sold very well, especially the last EC in this area, Copenhagen by CDL, was fully sold already. So I mean, there are definitely developers here are trying to emulate Copenhagen and try and catch those buyers who didn't manage to buy Copenhagen and try and get EC here. So we expect probably about 600 plus per square foot for this EC, right, in this project. But you can see here, developers are definitely more confident in EC versus normal condo price and condo plots, and more developers bidding for plots over here, right? And let's look at the price. It should be announced soon, next couple of weeks, but definitely 600 plus per square foot is what we're looking at, especially for upcoming areas like Tengah, which is going to be prime. The other thing that there will be another EC launching in Bukit Batok also, called Altura. I think coming out soon. Altura is technically Bukit Batok. It's not really Tengah per se, but it's a short drive to Tengah lah, right? I mean, maybe it's also better you buy Bukit Batok rather than Tengah itself, because at Bukit Batok a bit more developed today compared to Tengah, right? Tengah may easily take another 10 years before it fully develops, but up to you. I mean, no right or wrong. If you couldn't buy Copenhagen, I'm sure some buyers will definitely be in the Altura EC coming up soon, right? Later half of this year, right? So by this, are we looking at government is ramping up supply? Now, if you look at the news, early this year, our Minister of National Development, Desmond Ng, said that they're going to push up HDBs a lot, like 150 concurrent HDB BTO projects being built, right, by 2025, and they are trying to throw in as many BTOs as possible, right? I think if you look at the recent BTO launch, I think we also look at the record number of BTOs being launched recently, right? Government is definitely pushing up BTO supply to try and stabilize prices in the HDB market, right? And now, if you look at recently, right, for the government land sales for private condo, right, for the second half of this year, is the highest in a decade, right? In a decade, this is the largest amount of land plots, right, made available by the government. So obviously, if you haven't read between the lines, government is trying to throw in more supply to stabilize prices, right? We don't want to say prices drop, because I think drop is also a sensitive word, because obviously a lot of people have wealth. A lot of Singaporeans have wealth, in a large chunk of their wealth in property. We don't want to see prices fall, because that would destroy their wealth, right? But definitely we want to see prices stabilize and don't go up as fast as in the past 1-2 years, right? During COVID, I think Singapore prices were like record-inducing prices. So when we say highest in decade, what are the sites that we are looking at, right? And yeah, if one note in this article, right, 50% higher than 2022 and 2.5 times higher than 2021, right? The amount of land that government is throwing at the market right now. So that says something, right? Which I think is this is the most important sentence, right, by the ministry on this point. So what are the new sites? Okay, so you can see this is the list for the half 2 2023, right? And you can see total 8 sites here for the confirmed list. That means confirmed government want to sell, right? With the launches from anywhere from August all the way to December. And you have a bunch of reserve sites. So in case you don't know what reserve is, means the government, if as a developer, if you like the site, you can bid for it, right? But you must meet the minimum price before it's triggered, right? What's the minimum price? Government don't say, but there is a minimum price. If you hit the minimum price, government will open it up for sale. So generally speaking, I think judging at the way we have so many on the confirmed list, I don't think the reserve list will be triggered, right, this year. But let's go through all the plots in the confirmed list one by one, right, and roughly talk about it, right? We don't know the prices yet, we don't know who are the winners, but we can roughly talk about the sites and see what are the impact to other existing projects that have been launched right now, or what could potentially change in the future when these sites are eventually sold. Okay, so the first one is Clementi Avenue 1, right? Now, Clementi Avenue 1, actually this plot is in between the Clairvon, which is currently under construction. I think Clairvon will TOP this year, right? It's already nearing completion now. And Clement Canopy, I think some TOP some time ago. So this is the plot in between both of them. It faces the AYE highway and it's quite near NUS. This is NUS over here, right? Clement Canopy is very famous for being near NUS. So this project will probably enjoy the same. And actually, you're not that far away from Clementi MRT. Clementi MRT is just a short, I think, what, 3 bus stops away. So in that sense, you can get to Clementi MRT quite easily. So that is the plus point of this site, right? It finishes off this Clementi Avenue 1 balance plot land, so there'll be no more land here, right? It will challenge Clement Canopy. I guess it will make Clement Canopy happy and also Clairvon happy, depending on the price that's finally sold, right? So this is the first plot, Clementi Avenue 1, estimated 500 units, so a mid-sized project. I think this one will be quite heavily bidded because this kind of location, I'm quite sure you can find buyers to come in. Right, second plot is in Ulu Pandan Road. Actually, this is a Pine Grove, all right. Today there's a project, actually this Pine Tree Hill, I think is in the midst of previewing soon, or will preview soon. It's next to the very famous iconic Pandan Valley project, all right. So this is Zion area, right? This is Zion area, not the Zion, sorry. Pine Grove area, Sinai Hill, sorry, Sinai Hill area, right? So where Pandan Valley is. Not very far away from Clementi MRT, a short drive away. But this location itself, technically speaking, no MRT lah. Yeah, you can go up. I think you get to Upper Bukit Timah and Bukit Timah. Yeah, King Albert Park, Upper Bukit Timah here, up by Clementi Road. But this area technically no MRT, right? Again, I think this area hasn't had a condo launch in over 10 years or so. Actually, Pine Tree Hill is the next one to try absorb some of that later demand, having had no condo launch in over 10 years. But yeah, this is the next one just next to it, right? So this will also soak up the supply in this general vicinity, Sinai Hill area. The third plot is Lorong 1 Toa Payoh, not very far from Braddell MRT. It's a short walk only through a couple of two HDB blocks. I think the most recent project was Gem Residence. I think Gem Residence got key or launched when 2016 got launched, right? Gem Residences, right? So not near Toa Payoh MRT, but definitely near Braddell MRT. This is also interesting plot. 775 units, not too small a project, but again, I suspect this plot will be also quite heavily bidded because Toa Payoh rarely have launch, right? And the last launch Gem Residence did very well, so I think this one will be bidded quite heavily as well, considering it's not that far from MRT. Right, the next one is Orchard Boulevard. Now this one is in Tanglin Orchard Boulevard area, Grange Road area, nearer to the Cascaden Gen Hotel, that side. Right, yeah, so one thing is next to Orchard Boulevard MRT, which is already existing. That will be the plus point for it. Project site not very big, only 270 units. But I think Core Central region not getting a lot of love recently, so I don't know whether people will buy this site or there'll be heavy bids for this site because, yeah, nowadays because foreigners not really buying to Singapore, right? So all this prime area like Orchard Road, Marina Bay, and judging from like the recent Marina Bay sale, developer may not be so keen on Core Central region site, right? And a lot of the projects that I think find challenge to sell today are Core Central region. Yeah, so this one don't know how, but one thing good is near MRT. Maybe people will still buy because site not so big, right? Small site, right? Next one is EC Plantation Close. This is also you know, you can see up here, right? Most of the Tengah being built right now is here, right? This is the heart of Tengah that will be built, and actually the HDB in the MRT station in Tengah also in this area one. So they're going to launch two EC at the bottom here. I also don't know why they're going to launch this EC at the bottom here. I mean, on paper it's in Tengah, right? But it's in the very edge of Tengah though, not in the heart of Tengah. So I don't know why. Yeah, but this is an EC, right? Which is available for sale. So I guess since EC is still pretty hot, people will bid for this as well. Especially those out of the 9, those people who don't win this site, they'll probably go for this site, right? But this is Tengah area. Right, the next one is Upper Thomson. Now, this is in Springleaf. For those of you who don't know, Springleaf MRT. Here's actually a landed estate. On the other side is actually nature reserve. Quite quiet area if you've been there before. I think there's some famous food along this street. Cannot get parking one, right? And then yeah, this is there's one MRT here completed not too long ago, Springleaf MRT. So these two plots are up for sale. So both of them will be connected to MRT. I'm not so sure exactly demand for this site though, because it's fairly ulu part of Singapore. Not that many people in this part of Singapore, no HDB area to tap onto, right? There's some landed area here, like I said. So both plots are up for sale, A and B, right? This one is the next one, which is just basically the plot below it. So both plots will be up for sale, and actually the projects are quite big, 940 and for site B, and 595 for site A. So actually total 1,004 units here estimated, right? But if you're looking for a cheap condo near MRT, I think this could be an option. right? Considering it's next to the this Springleaf MRT, which is existingly operating MRT today. And the last one is Zion Road. Zion Road actually is basically near Zouk, right? This Riviere, right? Just TOP only, I think, right? Riviere is the last condo launch here, which is on the side of the Zouk club, the very famous Zouk club. So this is just behind it, right? I guess people will be keen because you're not that far from Havelock MRT, right? Across the road a little bit is Havelock MRT, but this is an open walk, not really sheltered. I don't know whether they'll do a sheltered walk for you. And of course, Great Wall City is just above you also if you cross the other side. So maybe not too bad because in this area, also quite a lot of people with money to buy just off town central. So yeah, might be an interesting site to look as well. 955 units, so a very large project as well. So these are all the plots in government land sales in Singapore for the year, right? For the rest of the year. So what can we summarize on my 2 cents, right, for the rest of this year and 2024, right? Judging from the land sales, right, and judging from the bids by developers on this land sale. So number one is definitely government is throwing in more supply, whether HDB or private property. You can see government is releasing as much land as possible where they think it's logical to try and moderate prices. As I mentioned, I doubt Singapore property prices will fall primarily because demand is still very strong, right? We've spoken to many owners recently. A lot of owners still have no problem finding rental for their units, right? Sale maybe not so much, definitely harder now a little bit, right? The fewer calls as an on-the-ground agent, fewer offers, but so far so good. I think a lot of owners don't have an issue to hold, right? There's no real reason to drop price, and even though offers are lower, right? Last time maybe you get 10 calls, 6 offers. Now maybe you have 5 calls, 2 offers. So I mean, there's still offers at the price that you want, right? Maybe not as many as in the past. So far, right, demand is still pretty strong in Singapore today. So moderation of prices is the key, right? At least with lower number of offers, lower number of calls, right? We don't expect prices to go up as much, right? Especially with incoming supply. And you know the keyword, both new and completed. New as in new government land sales, completed as in this year also. I think we are getting a lot of keys, right? 2023 is a year of record number of completion. I think all throughout Singapore, by end of the year, I think we are looking at more than 10,000 completion. I think definitely in Singapore, units for private alone, right? Private condo, if I'm not wrong, I need to double check that. Yeah, but definitely a high amount of completion this year and next year, right? So that will bring down or at least temper price growth in Singapore a bit, right? Project sales, we really start to see this happening, right? For example, like Tembusu Grand, a project that would typically launch like 70-80% sold, day one only sold 50-something%. The Continuum only did 26% first weekend. Grand Dunman coming up soon. I don't think Grand Dunman will do more than half. I could be wrong. But I think Grand Dunman will look at somewhere between 20-50% sales first weekend. I think that's my opinion. And a lot of developers will still have stock to sell for the foreseeable future, right? So the sales figures will not be as strong. I mean, Grand Dunman as it is, I did a video about Grand Dunman just a few days ago. Go and watch that if you're keen. Will probably, to me, be the last big launch of 2023. Right, the reserve residence was a project to me you should have fully sold on day one, right? The reserve residences in Upper Bukit Timah by Far East, but they didn't sell as well because number one, developer held back some units. They didn't release everything, right? But they still did a very respectable 70%. But like I said, as to me, reserve residence to me is the number one project of the year for this year. I mean, if you had the right sense of mind, you've compared all the projects in Singapore, unless you really hate Bukit Timah for some reason, right? Reserve residences was the project to buy, right? And those people with lucky ballot numbers managed to get it. Price was not expensive, was reasonable for the location it gave you. So, but yeah, I mean, Grand Dunman to me is the next big one that you can potentially consider. But after that, all the other projects in Singapore are pretty, yeah, so-so, right? I mean, I don't want to name names, I don't want to say, but I mean, anything launching from now until year end are not fantastic, right? They're just, you know, out of 5 star, maybe 2.5 star, 3 star overall in terms of the projects that whether you should buy, don't buy. Maybe you buy if you very localized, you like the location very much for own stay. But I mean, as pure comparing 10 condos all together, right? I think the rest of the condo launches in Singapore this year are just so only, nothing fantastic to talk about. But I mean, yeah, like I said, if you really like a certain area, maybe you buy it. If you really need to upgrade and the timing is right, maybe you'll still buy it, right? But other than Grand Dunman, I think the rest of the projects this year are like so-so, right? So we'll see what happens in 2024, right? Whether any interesting launches come up, and there will be, I guess. Yeah. So So project sales will start to taper, right? And and you've seen this in developer pricing, they have become more conservative, right? Judging from the sale prices they put in the Tampines land and also the one in Marina Gardens, right? You can see developers are no longer bidding over 1,000 per square foot. Developers are now bidding 800 plus, 900 plus per square foot only. So definitely they are being more cautious with pricing as well. And finally, the third point I want to say is what happens moving forward actually all depends on the economy. Today we're in a situation where economy is a matter of perspective, right? It's either good or bad. You look at the glass half empty or the glass half full, right? Half empty because things have not fully recovered, right? In some ways, Singapore still, the global economy is still very fragile, right? China is not doing very well. US is in doing strong, but somehow still strong for strange reasons. Though parts of the US economy are not doing well, but overall US is still okay. And US are still going to do things like interest rate hikes because the economy is still fairly okay. So that's a strange situation to be in. US is in a very weird place right now. Europe is not going anywhere, and the world also affected by things like the war in Ukraine still ongoing. We still have issues with China and the US. They're still quite hostile to each other politically, right? Conflict in that sense. The tech economy is also in a strange place. Some tech companies are doing very well. Some tech companies are not doing so well, right? Unlike 2-3 years ago where every tech company was doing well, now we have this situation where we're starting to see who are the real survivors and who are not. So it's a very strange place to be in. And I also take note that Singapore will have a GST increase again in 2024, right? When the GST comes in, I think that expect there's a 2-tier effect, right? So maybe it's hard to say what will really happen. It all depends on how the economy pans out, right? So whether if people ask me, will Singapore prices go up or go down again? I think prices moderate is for sure. Again, you can see it already, developer bidding lower land price, right? A lot of supply coming in, both new and completed supply. Yeah? New supply from government, completing supply also getting keys this year, also a lot, right? So definitely prices will moderate, but demand is still very strong, right? Singapore is still a #1 grade A, AAA economy in the world. Lots of people still want to come and work and live in Singapore. Rich people still park their money in Singapore, right? A lot of people still come to Singapore to do business, right? Evidently, as you can see recently, right? I like to use the example like Coldplay and Taylor Swift, right? They are doing more 11 nights, Jackie Cheung, 11 nights in Singapore, concerts in Singapore, right? So that shows you Singapore is still a preferred destination compared to many of the Asian peers, right? So in that sense, Singapore will still do well and demand is still strong, right? But again, Singapore's very open economy. We are very much dependent on what happens in other countries across the world. So there's a lot of push and pull factors going on. If you look at it glass half full, right, we are no longer affected by COVID, right? A lot of businesses can now operate openly, right? Definitely now is better than COVID in that sense. So in that sense, the glass is half full, right? The economy is operating at a much better speed than it was 2 years ago, right? But but not everybody has recovered at the same pace. I guess that's the correct way to say it. And some old problems are still here, right? US debt, right? Interest rate issues, right? Are still here. So so it is what it is, right? I think the way the Singapore price will move is all dependent on the economy in that sense, with some key points which are quite clear. Like I said, moderation of prices because of incoming supply. So that's my 2 cents for Singapore property prices right now. So as what I tell people, my summary is that if you are based in Singapore, you're a Malaysian in Singapore, you're a Singaporean, right? If you haven't, as much as you can, try and own that Singapore property, do the asset progression if you can, own 2 private property under your name and your spouse name if you can. I know it's definitely the way to do it if you can afford to do it, right? If you cannot or you don't want to stretch, there are other options, right, which I strongly recommend to look at Malaysia, JB, right? Do and take a look at my other JB videos about it. There are some reasons for it, especially because MRT is going to JB in 3 years' time. I think that's the big push, right? That's one way to play on a property game that a lot of people have not really caught on yet. So this is the basis of my investment. I own properties in Singapore and Malaysia. I have no particular bias to one another, right? So yeah. So if you do like the content that I share today, do drop me your comments in my YouTube on my comments below. If you like my YouTube channel, do like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. We do share many videos on Singapore property and JB property, Malaysia property as well. If you want to join our mailing list, do scan the QR code here and join our mailing list where we'll send you email invites and updates on our latest events and talks and videos that we do for you. So thank you very much. Do watch the description below to see us on my TikTok, on my Facebook, and other channels on social media that we operate on. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, so feel free to contact me at my phone numbers below, my Singapore number, my Malaysian number, or my email. And happy to have a chat or coffee with you on any property topic. That's what I do, So thank you very much, and bye bye.